Alright, so Oscar Mason, we'll tear it up real quick here. We got the seven deadly sins. What are they, and why are they so dangerous? Well, while I got Marshmallow out tonight, we just letting him run around, tear it up. I did the same thing here, but we'll use a lot of mathematics and a bit of a psychological thesis. We're already 3 into the 7 that we'll need in the 5 signs of the denial. In terms of what is really going on, I use Rhodes conjecture, Fermat's last theorem, Beale's, Ying's mass gap, air turbulence equation, overstrokers, Brick-and-Dryer conjecture, Hodges on topology, Poncure on topology, Mini of Bitcoin, and Hutter's Prize, right? Well, that's 10 of them. That's 10 of them offhand. I'm sure there's 7 of them in there. And at any rate, ego, lust, gluttony, sloth are terms. They start to turn over real quick, and if you want to take this over to esoterics as a name of a YouTube page, I don't know if I still have them on here. I may not have subscribed to him. Well, esoterics, eschatology is generally like how I like to describe it. Esoterics, esoterica, or something like that. At any rate, I generally like this guy's work, mythology and fiction explained. He gets into some really good stuff, like his presentations.
Pride. Greed.
Oh yeah. Oh
wrath.
yeah.
Envy. Lust. Gluttony.
I like to set them
sloth.
up instead of
the 7 capital vices, or 7 deadly sins.
Eschatology class.
Succumb to any of these sins
at any point in time of your life, during the day, any given day,
comedy,
Wednesday at Downpour,
and having the displeasure of climbing out through Satan's nutsack.
This is a derivative out your boss.
Who knows?
You don't know who that is.
No
Some
expert.
days it starts to slide inside out of the family, the mother, the father, the brother. There's actually a group state matrix to it that's a little bit more complete. What's cool about 7 is it's 1, 2, 3, 6, plus 1 is 7. It's a way that matrix works. You go 1, 2 gives me 3, 3, 3 and 4. Well, that's 6. 3. So I just give it 4.
I must tell you about the undiscovered deadly sin
4? Is that how it works?
When researching this video.
Yeah, so it's a 1, 2, 4 matrix. Every once in a while you get one like that. 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 2 is 4. That would give you 7 on something. And whatever fancy damn horse crap math that turns into Mario.
Luckily, this isn't something we have to concern ourselves with,
Running
because
Bernoulli.
today's video is sponsored by Displate. A displate is a metal poster
I
or
generally like to
canvas
set
that
these up
makes
during
for
the
a
day.
great display piece.
I like the
With over
Bernoullis, that
1.4 million
aspect
artists and
specifically. I said
partnerships with
in the
huge
stone mill,
brands such as
instead
Marvel,
of
DC,
the
and Star Wars,
individual
I'm
model
sure you'll
that
be able
turns
to find
off
something that
into
suits your
the cost
taste.
line.
As you can see, the
Ego
awesome people over
being
at Displate have sent
how
me
this
some
could play
designs I
into Wrath
requested.
being
We
Marshmallow
have everyone's favorite Italian plumber looking creepy
has
as ever,
some
a
sloth
vibrant
nature
space
to
piece, and of course Lovecraft and
Got
Cthulhu
some lust.
looking almost as
Oh,
creepy as
gluttony.
our plumber.
Oh,
When these arrived, I thought I was going to have to start
Sugar
drilling
shock and
holes
diabetes
and making a
and
mess everywhere.
marshmallows.
But mounting these canvases is
Pride,
as simple as
for
sticking
sure.
a pair of
But you need
magnets to
pride,
your wall,
like you need
which then
marshmallow.
secure
How
your
you do it
canvas
to
in
that?
place.
Some people
Not
like
only is
it,
it
some people
extremely
don't.
easy
So
to mount
I
your
switched it
displate,
off to
but if you
marshmallow here
decide
and
you
field
want a
theory.
new design,
Real close to
you
each
can
other.
simply
Like,
pull it straight off the magnets and attach a new one in its place. If you'd like to browse the rest of Displate's collection, you can save up to 37% off your order by using the link in the description.
I'm sure it did, but now we're talking some tone on avatars.
Although the 7 deadly sins are largely a Christian concept, we do have
Avatar
similar
being
ideas from the ancient
Marshmallow in the
Greeks and
Stone Mill
Romans, as
manual.
well as many other religions across the world.
Mathematics thesis.
It's common for the 7 deadly sins to be paired with the 7 holy
pretty grouped over
virtues,
the
because they are
differential of him.
examples of how
And
we
he
should and
is
should not behave.
An older person, and a
Aristotle
whole
saw
bunch of
this
things
as less of a
between
concrete
A and B
right
in here
and wrong
between
system, and more
field
as a
theory the answer,
spectrum
huh?
of behavior.
Honey grab.
If one
just hanging
veers
out here
too
in the
far
levels,
off in
huh?
any direction, we move into vice
Oh
territory.
yeah, that can do that.
If one
but you gotta
manages to
figure
stay
out
in
how to
the
turn that
middle of
over.
these
My
extremes,
group
you'll be
is
showing
going for
positive
punishment. Haven't
qualities
looked at the
and
real ground to
virtues.
have it turn over yet.
One example would be fear. If you are scared of everything, then you will miss out on things in life because you allowed fear to control you. An example of cowardice.
Having
The quality
it
or
known
virtue that
is
conquers
good.
fear
You're
and
not going to
cowardice
be
is
so locked up in
courage.
certain business
However, if one
concepts.
shows too much courage, we
However,
now lean heavily
the
over to the other side of the
dynamics
spectrum,
of
which
that
is
situation say
recklessness. Too
I
much
have to give it
courage
to
may
like
leave you
Dal
in situations that could have
and
been easily
Tompkins,
avoided.
you know what I mean? Just over
Rather
there
than the approach
kicking on
of
the
this
soft
behavior
tenure,
can only be
being a
good or
Jedi.
bad, this is much more of a balancing act,
And
trying to
90% of
maintain
that
a
learning curve
healthy
you're gonna learn
mean,
quick.
as opposed to the idea of
If they
sin
teach
and
you.
virtue.
Yeah, I mean, if the test is
Anyway,
there and like
moving
you
on
do it
to the
enough on
Christian,
prime
or
indexes,
more
you
accurately,
know,
the Catholic concept of the
that's good
7
gluttony.
deadly
And
sins. The most
prove it,
concise
have
definition I've come
pride,
across
lust
is as
for it.
immoral behavior that would separate one from God, and in turn lead to more sin
Yeah,
being
the
committed.
church.
A venial sin would weaken one's
No, Paul
relationship with
or
God,
John
but
or
not completely
whoever.
sever the bond
Really,
as the
I mean,
deadly
honestly, you
sins
got
would.
in the pew. Just do math.
Turning your
Teach
back
the
on
kid.
God
Don't
was
need a
thought
college
to make
degree. I'm
one
gonna be
more
real
likely
pissed
to
as hell. I'm
commit
gonna bring
what are
the
known
wrath of
as
God down
mortal
on them.
sins.
That would be
If
the
you
kind
then
of
die
preachers
without
we need,
repenting
right,
for
Jack?
these mortal sins, you
Chap
go straight to
smash.
hell.
Just get out there.
So the 7 deadly sins are essentially the gateway or temptation that leads to more sin. These ideas were first discussed in the Catholic Church by
Whole
Pope
bunch of them
Gregory
out there, big
I.
dog.
He wrote about the
You
7
better
deadly
speak their
sins
language,
in the
you're gonna be in
6th
trouble.
century. A very similar idea was discussed several centuries before by the monk Evagrius,
Your
who
guess is
instead
good as mine.
listed 8 evil thoughts. These thoughts were translated from Greek to Latin by John Cassian. Pope Gregory then streamlined this number to 7 sins in his text
They were doing
Moralia,
something,
and thus
like,
we have the 7 deadly
There's
sins.
a whole line of
Gregory's
Masons
list
out
was
there
then
doing
used
it real
again
big.
in the 13th
At
century
what
by
level?
Thomas
I
Aquinas,
like to play the
who
board.
further
Sometimes
expanded
get a
upon the
pawn, some
ideas
tails.
behind these
Get a
sins.
bishop. Either way, you'll take the
The
queen
first
if given
sin
the
is
opportunity to
pride,
use.
which is also commonly referred to as the father of all sin. Pride, however, in this case refers to ego or the idea
He's
of
one of those ones where
hubris,
it gets
which
real
is
close.
prevalent in Greek and Roman myth as one of the worst crimes one could commit. Whenever someone believed
America,
they were
the
equal
court
or
system,
greater than the
law,
gods, they were swiftly
and they
punished
were
and
good.
made an example of. Once one succumbs to pride, this symbolizes a lack of humility. The welfare of others
only
is
those
ignored
good
in
as
place
those
of
who
their
above
own
it.
urges and desires. This selfishness only leads to
It's my
contempt
house.
and
Nobody
other
else is gonna
sin.
win. Honey,
The
shut
most
the
classic
tap.
example we have of pride is Lucifer, the most beautiful of God's angels.
Yeah, he's alright.
Lucifer began to question
alright.
everything about the
Bowser.
universe he had been told.
Just Bismarck.
Eventually, he started to believe he could do a better job ruling heaven than God himself. This led to a great war in heaven that Lucifer would
Run pretty good.
ultimately
I mean,
lose.
it's not great, but
For
not
his
on fire.
rebellion, he was cast from heaven and forever known as the fallen angel who would embody the sin of pride.
Like, you need
The opposite of
Crusaders
pride
running,
is the
secure
virtue
defense
of
if you were
humility
good.
or humbleness. The next sin
It's
is
different now.
gluttony.
Different.
This is the act of
Someone that took care of his
overindulgence to
ass.
the point of waste. Although gluttony is most commonly associated with the consumption of
Like,
food,
I'm in
it
charge.
can also refer to an
You're gonna like
overindulgent
it.
lifestyle, not too
Get used
dissimilar
to it.
from greed. There are several different types of gluttony. Thomas Aquinas divided gluttony into several forms. Eating food that was too expensive, luxurious, or exotic. Eating food in excessive quantities. Eating food that required elaborate preparation. Eating food at an
Plenty of room.
inappropriate time.
You run.
And lastly, eating
Amen.
food too eagerly. The virtue of gluttony is temperance or moderation. Exercising restraint and modesty are examples of how not to succumb to gluttony.
Tell me I'd live my life, you do.
Moving on to greed, or avarice as it's also known, this sin focuses on desire.
Well,
The
it's a couple different ways.
uncontrollable
Obviously,
desire for material,
seeing
social,
an
and
illusion
political
here.
gain. From
Well,
this
it's never
stems
like an
all
answer. It's
sorts
like,
of
oh, so it's the
questionable
money one.
behavior.
Not really.
Hoarding
Sometimes
riches and materials that
just
could be used to help those in need.
this.
Stealing in order to obtain what you desire. or lies, trickery, and the manipulation of others in order to achieve
I'd argue.
status or political power.
Objection,
Early
Your
European
Honor.
theologians would go as far to say, other than the devil, there is no greater enemy to man than the desire for money.
I need more.
This was
What are you
commonly
doing? What you
used when
got?
discussing usury, which is the practice of making unethical loans which exceed the legal interest rates, often taking advantage of others' misfortunes.
Living.
This
Just
is what
I
we would
figure from
refer
where-
to
where I'm
today
at,
as a loan
just I'm
shark.
alive. I must be doing
Similar to
something good.
pride, greed is considered a gateway into numerous other sins, as well as the root of many evils. Lust is the capital sin that relates to
I'm
desire
alive. I
of
got all
a
this treasure
sexual
and I need more.
nature. This was seen as leading to fornication, adultery, sexual assault, seduction, and bestiality in some odd cases.
Well, it's more about
Most
you being
religions will
weird and
distinguish
talented.
lust from passion.
What do you
Lust
mean?
was
It's like,
considered an immoral
look at me.
desire,
look at me.
whereas passion was more
are you
widely
doing?
accepted as God-given and the main driving force behind reproduction. Lust does also
Yes and
come
no.
in some other
Depends.
forms,
Theology
such as
plays
the
a lot into it.
unbridled desire
It's
for
like,
money,
well,
power,
if
and
some of
even
them do
food.
and they get away
These are
with it,
minor
that's one
forms of
thing.
lust
Your
that relates
resources
to
are kind of in the
gluttony
same
and
topology.
greed.
Playing the
The
left-hand
virtue of
rule or the
lust
right-hand
is
rule or getting them
chastity,
both going
the
out.
act of refraining from sexual activity that may be considered immoral, or in
Yeah,
some
I like the
cases,
pyramids.
from all
Kinda
sexual
fucked it up. You
activity.
can actually see it in the real world.
Envy is a sin that ties
Like
closely together with
parties,
both
Rome,
greed and lust.
Kinda.
It is a
Sure, it would've
desire
been
for
great,
what
but
others have
2020.
that leads to resentfulness and sadness. This can mean desiring someone's possessions, achievements,
I say put it on
physical
Fermilab and
and
prove it.
personality traits, or social
Like all the time
status.
if you're big.
In some cases, you may not desire
Fuck it
them,
up.
but instead
Few of the
wish that
generals
someone
do.
else
I want
did
to see
not
them
have
drop
them.
a fucking panda like
Envy is
they
also
do.
separated into two categories: malicious envy and benign envy. Malicious envy
I
is
think
similar
that's
to
science.
jealousy,
I think I'd be pissed. If
the
it was
negative emotion
wrath,
towards people you
and that is the
perceive as
correct
better
response.
off than yourself.
But not
Benign
all
envy
the
is
time,
merely
like,
the recognition
go
that
shoot your
someone is
grandmother,
better off or in a
unless
better
she's
position than
in on
yourself.
it. They're different.
This type of envy is still negative, but it can be used in a
Yeah,
positive way,
some weird
such
shit,
as
like,
the
you know it's not
motivation
right.
to emulate someone's success.
But I can pistol whip. this
Malicious
stuff.
envy only leads down the path of hatred,
Thank you,
isolation, and sorrow. The only sin that weighs down the soul more than envy is pride.
If you don't pistol
The
whip,
most
you won't
famous
fight your
example
wife.
of envy, at least in the book of Genesis, is Cain murdering his brother Abel. Because he was jealous, God favored his brother's sacrifice over his. The virtue of envy is kindness, which involves compassion and the
I'd assume I was
satisfaction
wrong.
of one's
42 would
situation
assume
or
he was wrong.
position.
On some program limit.
Sloth
of
is the
what
sin where we
differential
start to
is
see the
average
separation
over the
from
number.
God we mentioned earlier.
We diverged, didn't
This isn't laziness in terms
time
of sitting
flows on
around on the
certain
couch
time
all day.
paradoxes of
Well, actually it is, but it also means a
the
spiritual
government needs you
laziness.
to.
The Latin for
You're gonna
sloth
make it,
translates to mean
he's telling you
without a
you're gonna
care,
make it out to
not
about
caring
here,
about anything
don't
in your
care,
current
beat your
life,
neighbor,
and even the
don't smoke
afterlife.
meth. Hey,
Whatever the church
quit
perceived
smoking meth.
as
You ever see 'em out there?
obligations and
I want
duties
to
would be
change,
ignored.
boss. I want to.
Losing interest in
That's
hobbies,
when they all fucking
friends,
tweaked out.
work, and romance was seen to lead to sadness and
Doing
depression.
his job like a boss.
All the sins so far have been
Smoking.
something
You
you,
know what?
should not do,
Smoking.
an act you should not commit, but do
Yeah,
anyway.
people die.
Sloth, however,
It's
is the sin of omission,
Driving around
failing
on
to
the
do
road
something
and
you
being
should.
stupid and
You may have
Sure,
heard
you'd
of
be
the
a great drunk
phrases,
driver,
the
but
devil makes work
you
for
don't put in
idle
work.
hands,
You
or
don't even
evil
like practice
exists
with
when
it,
good
like, not
people
all the way
fail to
drunk and
act.
then real
These are
drunk one
taken
night,
from
but
a much
you know
older
that
sentiment
road
relating
so
to
fucking
sloth.
good that
The virtue of
God.
sloth is diligence and a persistent work ethic. The lack of stimulation relating to one's mind and body is still something
on,
many
buddy.
struggle to
Wanna play the
overcome
game?
even today. The only sin left to cover now is wrath, the feeling of rage and anger that one struggles to control. From wrath stems hatred and vengeance that causes feuds which can
What do you
last
want?
for decades and even centuries.
wrath.
Anger
Air
was not
turbulence
considered a
equation, like
sin
a
unless it was
hurricane.
directed towards an innocent person. Only then does it become the sin
Field
of
theory
wrath.
like a damn dragon.
Anger is normally divided into three subsections. Passive anger consists of defeatism, self-blame, and apathy. This was seen as the path that leads to substance abuse and addiction.
Church
Aggressive
like
anger consists of
Crusaders,
bullying, hurtfulness, and
Do
vengeance.
it. Rome's like,
Assertive
"Go
anger
ahead,
involves
fucking
calling
stab
out
me.
behavior you deem as wrong, blaming the individual responsible for that
If you don't,
behavior,
I'm gonna
and
kill
then
your family
punishing
and take
them.
away your food."
The virtue of wrath is patience, allowing people
Okay, me?
time to
Do I got any
change
of
the
that?
way
Like
they
where I did that, I
behave.
was like, well, if I come to find out that
Hopefully
you
you've
were
enjoyed
being
this
fucking
video on the
stupid,
7 deadly
I'm gonna
sins.
wrath for
I'm
just
sure
a
the
little
comment
while.
section will be full of anime
I'm gonna be
references
lazy
I
about
don't
cleaning
understand,
it up.
and that's okay.
Make sure everybody
Maybe it's
sees
something
it.
I'll
Be
cover in the
prideful
future.
and greedy about it.
As always,
Make sure I get away with
I've
it.
been your host, Mythology and Fiction Explained.